whenever you are.
Go.
All right, what we're going to talk about today is strainers. We sell a lot of strainers. They're used on water pumps. And here on the table, if we want to pan down, we've got all of the strainers that Jason sells. As I said before, all of these strainers are used on water pumps. They're used on the suction side of the pump having two sides, one for suction, one for discharge. First strainer we have is a round hole strainer. As you can see, the holes are round, rocket science. Square hole strainer. The holes are square. Now let's get into this. I guess the first question a lot of people here in the office ask, why do I need a strainer? The reason you need a strainer is to keep the debris out of the pump. I'll get into why we use a round hole and a square hole in a second. When do I use a strainer? When you want to move a body of water, whether it's a small body or a big body, best to use a strainer so you don't jam up the pump. How do I use a strainer? It attaches to the hose, the suction hose. Each strainer has a thread, the female thread. You put a combination nipple on the hose, thread this to it. You can also use a male end off of an AB pin lock. Then the big question is, which one do I use? We've got this array of strainers. Back to the round hole strainer. If you're using this strainer, you're keeping small debris out of the pump. All of these holes are 0.375 inches big. On all of these strainers, they're all going to be a round hole, 0.375 inches big, in the event your customer happens to ask that question. It keeps small stuff out of the pump. The square hole strainer is also called a trash strainer. The reason is, you can see the holes are bigger. Bigger things can go into the pump, but the pump is made to accept it. This will keep out sticks and bricks, but you're going to get small debris that will go into your pump. Not a problem, the pump is made for it. The holes, by the way, on here, on the 1.5 and 2, are 1.25. As they get bigger, the holes get bigger, up to around 1.75. Then we have our skimmer strainers. This is a bottom hole strainer. You can see you attach it to your suction hose. Your holes are on the bottom. Why would you use this? You pump it out of basement, and you want to get as much as you can out of that basement. That's why you would use this skimmer strainer, or bottom hole strainer. Its brother is called the top hole strainer. Instead of having the holes on the bottom, the holes are on the top. Well, where would I use this? Suppose I wanted it to get right down to the floor, right in the bottom of the tank. Now all the liquid can go in, and this still sits on the bottom of the tank. We also have what we call a tube strainer. This tube strainer is used for sucking water out of sewers, small pipes, small tubes, anything of that nature. Again, it threads to the suction side of the pump. Now we have one last strainer that looks very odd. It's called a witch's hat strainer. Looks like a witch's hat. We're also calling it a sugar cone strainer because it looks like a sugar cone. We will get into this later in another lesson, but these are used in the fracking industry or in oil and gas exploration. They're made of 304 stainless steel. They're very expensive, and we'll get into that in the next lesson. If you have questions, email